And welcome into another edition of Aggie Overtime, brought to you by UC Davis Health. And we continue to just have the very best that UC Davis has to offer. And certainly no different here today, as we have a chance to catch up with one of the all-time greats in UC Davis history. We're talking to Morgan Bertsch today, of course, from UC Davis women's basketball fame. We're talking to Morgan today from Poland. So, Morgan, it's great to see you. Just tell us, first of all, what time is it in Poland as we talk to you right now?
It's about 7 p.m. right now. So Not too late, 9-hour time difference. Makes it hard to schedule things every once in a while. But yeah, it's fun to be out here. I'm happy to be on this show. I'm excited to talk to you guys and let you know kind of what's up.
Well, I know everybody in Aggie Nation has been looking forward to hear from you and find out how you're doing. And first of all, let's just kind of catch up a little bit. We know what we've been dealing with in terms of the pandemic at UC Davis and in the United States. What's it been like for you overseas in Europe? I'm sure a lot of people would like to know what it's like over there.
Right. When I first got here, the restaurants and everything like that were all open. There were tons of people on the street. I mean, the weather was nice at that point, so there were a lot of people walking around. No one was wearing masks. It was very much felt, especially coming from California, where, you know, at that point we had been in a lockdown. We're trying to not leave the house. If you were leaving the house, you were wearing a mask. You know, restricted number going into supermarkets, things like that. So when I got here, it was a little bit of a shock. It was just kind of weird because it was something that we had been so used to being inside the house that I was coming here. I went out to eat with my teammates, all of us together, like the first weekend that I was here, and there were just so many people out. So it was a little stressful. But I was kind of like, is it just not as bad here, or just people just don't care as much, you know? But since then, there's definitely been changes to that. You're supposed to wear masks every time you go outside now. There's like specific hours that the elders can like use to go shopping, things like that. The malls are all closed. The restaurants are all closed. So, there was a little bit, at the beginning where it was all open, but now it's pretty much the same, as it is in America. But, basketball wise, I know I've been talking a little bit to some of the girls on the team now, and they get tested, you know, like regularly every single day. I've gotten tested like twice since I've been here.
Wow.
So yeah, they're just kind of letting us play. And we've had a couple of scares where I've had to quarantine for 10 days. So I've had to do that twice. And there was one of my teammates got tested positive, and my like physiotherapist, my trainer, tested positive as well at a separate point. So yeah, so we've definitely had a couple of scares. A couple of times we've had to quarantine, which was not particularly fun. But other than that, I would say at this point, it's probably about the same as how it is in America.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. And I'm just glad that you're doing well, you're healthy.
Yes.
And it's great for that updated insight too. Now, help me, my Polish isn't very good. You're playing professionally in Poland now.
Mine's not either.
Can you pronunciate for us the team that you are currently playing for?
As a test. Yeah. So honestly, the full name.
It's just too much. Yeah.
I don't know how to say it. Our sponsor is like a candy company. Okay. It's like a chocolate company. It's like Pajulka or something like that. I honestly don't even know how to say it, but we always just say as a test, which is like it's like Pajulka as a test. And then, that's about it. But I really can't pronounce anything. It's terrible. It's bad.
Well, the one thing that's translating is your scoring. Of course, you are the all-time leading scorer in UC Davis history, and you're leading your team in scoring over there just shy of 20 points a contest. Interesting about the language. How difficult is the barrier for you in terms of just interacting with teammates and just obviously living within the culture?
Right. If you asked me that question last year, it would be a lot different than it was this year. In Russia, the language was a very big issue for me. Because I think that I was used to, especially being at Davis, just having a lot of communication with my coaches, always being on the same page with them, as well as obviously communication on the court with my teammates. And then off the court, just being really close friends with my teammates and having that kind of relationship as well. So it was difficult for me last year because my coach didn't speak any English. So I used a translator for every practice, every game. Anytime that my coach needed to say anything out loud, I had a translator. which was one of my teammates. So it's not like it was, an official translator that was paid to be there. It was just one of my teammates who happened to know English well enough to translate. So last year it was very difficult. And this year, all of my teammates speak perfectly fluent English. My coach coaches in English. Everyone in town around here speaks English. It's a university town, so there's a lot of younger people who, work. If you're going to a restaurant or going to get coffee, everyone speaks English. So it was a huge change. Obviously, for me, it was a lot more helpful. It was a really positive change for me, and it made it a lot easier to just know exactly what your coach expects out of you, and that way I can build a better relationship with my teammates off the floor when we can actually understand what we're saying to each other.
Yeah, that's kind of a big plus. I would say that definitely helps quite a bit. You're kind of a seasoned veteran over in Europe now. As you discussed, you played in Russia, you've been in Germany now in Poland. Can you talk about?
No, I wasn't in Germany. That was Bell.
Oh, excuse me. From Moscow to Poland. Oh,
yes, yeah.
Just talk about European basketball, because on the women's side, obviously the NBA is considered the elite basketball league in the world. WNBA is certainly very elite too, but I'm not sure if people understand just how influential, how great European basketball is, and especially in Russia and a lot of the WNBA players, they are just as involved in European leagues as they are in the US.
Right. It's very competitive over here. It definitely depends kind of what league you're in. Because if you go to Russia, you have a lot of the WNBA players who play in those EuroLeague teams.
Yeah.
And then even after the EuroLeague team, there's a couple of Eurocup teams who also have really high competition level. But if you go to some other countries in Europe, it's not as high of level of basketball. So it kind of depends a little bit on where you are. I would say Russia, for me, I think Russia was more difficult than Poland is, but I also have a little bit of a different role on this team than I did on last team. So it's a little bit harder to gauge that. But European basketball, it's really good. And it's I would say very different compared to how I was playing in Davis. Just the style of play here, it's ball screens for days on days. It's just ball screens, which is a way of playing basketball, but it was definitely not the way that I had played at Davis, for all those years. So that was a huge adjustment for me, just because I didn't even know how to what to do with the ball when I caught it on a pick and roll, At Davis, we had a couple of times like that, but the only time that I got the ball was if it was just wide open, But when you get the ball and then now you have to kind of make a decision about, is there someone here and I have to pass that or take a dribble or, so that took a little bit of an adjustment. So I think it also helped me to realize everyone knows Jen Gross is an amazing coach, right? Yes. I mean, you don't build a program without an amazing coach like her. But I think I took for granted how good she was at the X's and O's when it comes to making sure everyone's in the exact perfect spot that they can be in to score. Belle's really good at denying ball screens. So we're going to put her going to her right hand for deny a ball screen. Danny's going to come off and hit this three. You're going to get a stagger here. If we do this play at this point, then you're going to get a wide open backdoor, And so I was kind of used to that, Jen's brain of just always being okay, we need a layup. We're going to run, a low post denial, and that'll be a wide open layup, 2 points, Whereas here, it's just okay, run this, that, and the other thing, and then go into a ball screen, So it took a long time for me to adjust to that, because I was just so used to a completely different style of play. And even when I talk to some of the other Ags who've gone overseas, they talk about that too, just how big of an adjustment it is, because now you don't have a coach that's putting you in the exact spot that you know how to score in, or getting you the ball. I got the ball so many times my senior year, just every play, get the ball and then make reads off of that. But here, I think my first year in Russia, I realized it the most, because I just wouldn't touch the ball unless it was on a pick and roll. Yeah. And so it was just things like that where I was just I'm not even getting touches enough to score how I know I'm capable of scoring. And so, so I think that it just took me coming overseas to kind of really realize how much I took that for granted. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great insight too. And yeah, definitely the college game versus the pro game, two different worlds. You explained that so well. You talked about talking to some of the former Ags that have been overseas. I'm just curious, are you able to keep in touch with your UC Davis teammates, and or is it pretty difficult where you're at right now?
Oh no, I talk to them all the time. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's really easy with Bell because we in the same time zone.
Yeah.
And so we can call each other at any point. Usually especially with coronavirus, all we're really doing right now is practicing and then sitting at home. So yeah, so me and Bell are talking back and forth, and it's nice kind of having another person that is also playing overseas, that is also experiencing the same struggles, the same just experiences in general of what it's like to play overseas, some of the hardships, some of the things, you can talk to her like about how the game went. And because she knows overseas basketball, she can understand the things that you're saying a lot better than someone who's used to even just playing college basketball. And so that's been really nice to have. And yeah, and I talk to Danny Naffick and Rachel Nagel and Marley Anderson, everything like that. I talk to them all the time. So, and the Eaton twins, yeah, we FaceTime them. So I have no problem keeping in touch. You just FaceTime each other. But it is interesting having to schedule like, okay, I'm going to call you at this time. And then it's like, okay, 9 hours plus 9 hours minus, you wake up at this time. You have to do a lot of math, especially even when I was organizing this call. I had to do so much like plus or minus 9, and I get off at this time. So yeah, it definitely takes a little bit of scheduling, but yeah, we keep in touch all the time.
That's great. All right. We're talking with Morgan Bertsch here. Again, this is being brought to you by UC Davis Health. Now is the perfect time to make sure you have UC Davis Healthcare and world-class specialty care at 18 clinics across the region, from Davis to Folsom and Auburn to Elk Grove. Learn how our doctors can support you at health.ucdavis.edu/Aggies. Let's talk about the WNBA a little bit, because you were drafted by Dallas and now you've been signed by the Connecticut Sun to their training contract. Can you explain what that means and what you might be doing with the Sun?
Right. Yeah. So I got drafted to Dallas right after my senior year. And I went to camp. I competed at camp. Unfortunately, I got cut after, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, like a little bit before their first official game. And then I played my season in Russia, and then I actually got signed again to a contract with Dallas for training camp. So it was all set that I was going to do a similar experience to what I had when I got drafted, was to show up to camp and try and basically compete for a spot. Unfortunately, because of coronavirus and everything that happened there, the WNBA didn't really know what their plan was going to be because of coronavirus, if they were going to do a bubble like the NBA, or if they were just going to do testing, how people were going to travel. And so there was a couple of months where no one really knew what was going to happen. And so I was kind of in limbo, even when I came back from Russia, about whether or not camp was even going to happen. And so in the end, they did have to cut down to 12 without even having a camp. So because I was, one of the people signed, I wasn't a returner, I wasn't one of the draft picks, I was cut without getting a camp, which, that's a tough way to get cut, because, you're excited for this opportunity, and then you don't even get a chance to, to show that you deserve it. Right. And so it was hard, but it was also something that I had prepared for, because coronavirus is something that no one knew how to deal with. And so I definitely didn't take it, personally or anything. It's just, it made the most sense without having a training camp. That's kind of how it was going to go. So obviously they did the bubble, and I was at home just training for my next season overseas. And then I would say about a month ago, I got, my agent had called me and been like, I don't really know. No one really knows what the WNBA is going to look like, because the bubble wasn't really effective for them last year. So they don't really know what they're going to do. So I can't even guarantee, I would say, he was like, any other year, I would say you would get a training camp, but because we don't know if they have to go straight to 12 or if we're going to even be able to sign for camp. And then basically 2 days later, he called me and was like, oh, the head coach from Connecticut Sun, Kurt Miller, wants to talk to you. And I was like, what? I was like, I thought just 2 days ago, you said I would have to probably wait. He's like, maybe until April, until camp might start. And so obviously I was like, okay, I was not at all prepared for that. And then, I talked on the phone with Kurt Miller for about 45 minutes, and it was a really good conversation. I mean, it was a really positive one for me because it really made me feel like he was trying to get to know me and that he actually was actively picking me, not just, oh, look, she has good stats. Mm-hmm. Sure, let's take her for camp. It was actually like he had thought about the potential of me making the team, what kind of role I would have, what my impact would be. What if I did make the team, kind of what he was expecting from me. And so that was kind of like a different take than I had when I had gone to Dallas. At Dallas, it was basically like, the only way you're going to make the team is if you show out at camp, whereas this year it was kind of like, hey, we know you're good. We know you're able to succeed. So if you can come in here and kind of show that to us and just prove it, give us that glimmer, show us that you know what role you're going to have, then we could see you being on this team. And so obviously that was very exciting for me because not only was it an opportunity, but it seemed like an opportunity that could actually come to fruition and that could actually result in me being on the team. So I'm really looking forward to camp. Obviously, I'm very much hoping that it actually happens. It's still, up in the air, but I mean, I'm very excited, and it seems like I will have a shot at being on the roster, but obviously you never really know with coronavirus and with the draft, with their picks, who they decide to take. But I'm really looking forward to just going and competing and showing how much better I've gotten over the years. Yeah,
well, no, that's a great opportunity, and hopefully everything will work out. A lot of out of your control at the moment, but it certainly sounds like a great opportunity. Now, Morgan, have to ask you, because obviously you were the all-time greatest player at UC Davis in points and conference championships and everything else, but you were also a biomedical engineering major at Davis too. So you're playing professional basketball, you have this incredible degree. How do you look at things on a long-term? Are you going to just try and use your basketball career for as long as you can and then transition? Or what would you like to do ultimately?
Yeah, it's hard. And that's something that I've been thinking about a lot more as I get older and as my career starts to progress, because it is something that now at this point, I have to think about how much longer I want to be doing this until I transition over into using that degree. And I don't really have an answer for you. It's kind of hard because the professional basketball life is so fluid. You don't really know what kind of opportunities are going to come your way. At what point does the money is not good enough, or, your body's starting to break down. You want to start, your real career, back in the States, or, you don't, you're just kind of being overseas and away from family and away from friends. So there are just so many factors that play into when you decide to retire. But I mean, at this point, I don't see it happening within the next 2 or 3 years. At this point, I am still getting great opportunities. I'm still getting invited back to camps in the WNBA. If I make the team in the WNBA, that prolongs it for another couple, at least a couple more years, just to see where that goes. And I think that I'll decide to retire when the opportunities stop being as good. So I think at this point, I'm still getting great opportunities. I still feel like I have a lot to learn, a lot to grow, and I have things that I think that I can accomplish. So I think once I either accomplish those goals or, my body starts to break down. I just think that there are a lot of factors that I have to kind of think about. And it is something that's going to be fluid and something that you kind of decide right before you sign your contract for the next year, honestly.
Yeah. Well, the great thing is, you have time to think about those things and to just get the best out of your basketball playing days. So by no means would I be one to give you advice on that front, but I would say take advantage of your opportunities. You have a great education there. I guess what I was curious, when your career is over, and I'm thinking that's maybe 10 years down the road when you have the great WNBA career, with what you've done at UC Davis on an academic side, what would that transition look like for you? Do you have a specific goal in mind with having that type of education?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
It's hard to say that, but I think that once I knew that I was going to go overseas and play basketball, it kind of put what do I want to do with my life kind of on the back burner, because now I was like, okay, well, this is something that I'm committing to for, 2, 3, 4 years, whatever. Yeah. So I think when people feel that urgency when they graduate of, what career do I want now? Like, where am I going to start? I've kind of prolonged that, and, have a couple more years to like think about that and try and figure it out. But I mean, yeah, like you said, I have a great degree from a great university that once I do decide to finish playing basketball, I think that, I might have to start a little bit lower on the totem pole, so to speak. I'll have to start at lower positions, maybe do actual internships and things like that to get some experience. But I think that that's something that I'll have to figure out when I'm done. But I was hoping to, get an internship or something like that when I got back from overseas last summer. But because of coronavirus, that kind of shifted things. But we'll have to see. I do think that I need to find a way to keep up with my engineering skills and my knowledge, because the longer that you're out of school, obviously the more the knowledge leaves.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to find a way to kind of keep that up. And so that when I do finally enter the workforce, I'm not too far behind in terms of what I remember, what my skills are.
Well, I have no doubt you'll figure it all out, and you're in the workforce right now. So concentrate on what you've got going on in front of you, and you're succeeding right now with what you're doing. So let's walk down memory lane just a little bit if we could, because I know our fans always love to talk Aggie women's hoops.
Oh, I do too.
Yes. And of course, you went to the NCAA tournament. You won so many Big West Conference tournaments, and you won, of course, so many regular season championships in the Big West as well. When you look back, what's kind of the overall takeaway from playing at UC Davis? I mean, I know there's so many great friendships. You discussed how great Jen Gross was as a coach, and obviously the success you had on the court. But what is your kind of overall takeaway that you hold on to is maybe the biggest thing or biggest couple of things?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, you hear the coaching staff talk about all the time how they try to build a family at Davis. The relationships are some of the biggest parts. And I think that that's the part that when I think back about, sure, we were able to accomplish a lot of amazing things, but I think the best part is who you're able to accomplish those things with. It's all fun to, win a championship and go to the NCAA tournament and things like that. But I think what I remember the most is just the people who I got to do those things with. And, if I didn't go to Davis, I wouldn't have met some of my best friends. I still talk to them. It's been 2 years. They graduated 3 years ago. I still talk to them, every week, once or twice a week. It's just things like that where, those are the things that you remember from, playing basketball with the people that you love. So, yeah, I think that that's the thing that I cherish the most. The coaching staff, I still talk to them every time I come back to Davis. We, eat together, we have dinner, Joe cooks us dinner, things like that. And every time we come back to Davis, we all get together, and it's, part reminiscing about, the good old days, and part talking about how exciting each of our futures are. So, I mean, I just think that the relationship aspect is the thing that I cherish the most from being at Davis, because I think that it's something that's very special. I've met a lot of people overseas now, a lot of Americans who played college basketball. And I think it made me realize even more how special Davis was in terms of those relationships, the kind of atmosphere it is, and what kind of program that they run. It's something that's really special. And I don't think that people realize, especially when you're in the moment, you don't realize just how special that is until you leave. And now you're like, well, dang, I wish that, that could last forever. And so, yeah, I think that I've met a lot of people overseas and heard some horror stories about their college careers, and what kind of their team was like. But I mean, I have nothing but positive things to remember from Davis. And yeah, I mean, it'll always be something that I cherish. I look back on and think about all the great times and obviously the amazing people I met along the way.
Yeah, it's such a great point, because you're playing with players now who played at some of the elite programs in the NC2A. So you're getting to hear a lot of stuff at a lot of different places, and it puts in perspective just how fortunate people are who have been able to play at UC Davis.
Of course, yeah.
All right. We're talking with Morgan Bertsch here. Again, it's brought to you by UC Davis Health. Show your Aggie pride and choose UC Davis Health with convenient care located right here in Davis. You'll always be connected to the best primary care providers who stay committed to keeping you healthy. Learn more at health.ucdavis.edu/Aggies. As we start to finish up, Morgan, I'd like to know, in terms of just your playing, you talked about the transition of, college is somewhat regimented, and you had the Princeton offense and the backdoor cuts and all those
Right.
types of things with Jen Gross, and you get into a pick and roll world of professional basketball.
Right.
Just growth of you as a player. Like, where do you see that in the next couple of years? Where would you like to continue to improve? Because obviously people who saw you at Davis could say, I'm not sure Morgan could improve on what she did at UC Davis because she was so dominant, but like in terms of that aspect.
Right. Well, I think I've changed a lot as a player. I mean, if you go back and look how I used to play, or if you followed along when I was at Davis, I scored a lot from the low post. Towards my senior year, I shot the three a little bit. My jumper was okay. I never really dribbled into a jumper very much until, again, later in my career at Davis. But I think now a lot of my skills are a lot more guard-like. My dribbling has gotten a lot better. My shooting overall, my mid-range, I can, pump fake from three into a one dribble pull up, which is very guard-like, I can shoot the three. I can shoot the three off of like a down screen, which is, never something that I would have imagined I was doing at Davis.
You got the Euro step working now?
A little bit. Definitely no like step backs yet. Maybe that'll be the next thing. But I mean, I think it's just really exciting because I can see how much I've grown since I've been at Davis and how much I've grown even since last year in Russia. And it's exciting that I still feel like there's so much more that I could learn. And I think that is something that as you get further along in your career, you're not always thinking that you have potential still. And you're not always thinking that there's things that you could learn. But I still think that there are so many different things that I don't know and that I could get better at, especially when it comes to being more guard-like or just being a more efficient scorer or, finding ways to score over taller players or more athletic players. And I just think that there's so many more skills that I could develop. And so, that's really exciting to me. And I think that with more coaching and just more work on the off season, and if I get an opportunity to be in the WNBA, that will be a huge learning experience as well. And that'll be exciting because I'll be playing with a lot older players who have been in the league for, 8-10 years. And so, I just think that I'm still young. I'm only 23. I know, to me, 23 seems like I'm like, oh my gosh, I turned 24 in 2 months. But for overseas, there are some players who are 40 still playing overseas, Yeah. And so one of my teammates is 30. So two of my teammates are 30. So I mean, I'm still young in terms of where I am in my basketball career. And so, I think it's just really exciting to think about how many more things I can learn, especially when it comes to being more of a perimeter player and developing those ball skills a little bit more.
You're just starting. That's what's exciting about
this. Yeah, really. Because I mean, at Davis, I was so much of a five player, like a 4-5, just playing in the post, and I didn't develop that more of the outside game until my senior year. But now that's just kind of taken off, which is exciting to see.
Yep. All right. We'll leave it with this question. I'm interested to hear what thoughts you may have on this, just for future Aggie athletes, whether they're currently at UC Davis and possibly have a chance to embark on a career like you have, or maybe somebody watching this program who's thinking about coming to UC Davis and being a student athlete. What words of wisdom, what little insights, what things would you share or impart with them?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I just think that, if you have the opportunity to go to UC Davis, that you should really cherish that opportunity because, like I said earlier before, it's not just like any other program in the country. And I think that sometimes people get caught up with, oh, they have better facilities, they're in a better league, and kind of looking at those things that are the glitz and the glam of playing college basketball. But I think that the most important part when you're trying to decide on where you're going is looking at the people who are there and looking at the program that you're entering into, whether they do things the right way. And I think that Davis is a prime example of doing things the right way and always, building those relationships and always, in a game, you're being sportsmanlike, you are staying together with your teammates, you're supporting each other. And I think that that's just something that makes the experience. You can play college basketball at a lot of different colleges, but I think the things that make it special are, like I said before, being around with the people you surround yourself with, but also how you're going to grow and who you're going to grow into as after you're done playing basketball, because you're only an athlete for a certain amount of time. And there becomes a time when you have to be a real adult and you have to actually have responsibilities. So, it's how you grow while you're at university and the kind of person that you want to grow into. And I think that I grew so much in my time at Davis, and I just really, think that I learned so many amazing lessons from these coaches, from my teammates, that have really helped me propel me into the future. And I think that that's something that you're building towards your future, you're building towards your career. And I think that Davis is a great place to build you as a student and to get your education, but also to build you as an individual and to make you the most well-rounded person you can be.
Yeah, well, that's well said. And Morgan, we'll leave it at that. I know everybody's so great to hear from you. We're glad that you're doing so well, having success in Portland. We're rooting for you as you come back to Connecticut and try out with the Sun. We'll keep our fingers crossed with that. And thanks for being such a great ambassador for UC Davis. And really thanks for taking the time to spend with us here today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
All right. That's Morgan Bertsch, one of the all-time greats at UC Davis. That's going to do it for this edition of the Aggie Overtime. We appreciate you watching as always. Go Ags.